Well, it is a steady start for the Asian indices, and we're also seeing that the oil prices have remained steady. But there is, of course, some amount of nervousness still in the US equities, as the US 10-year yield has again risen to over 1.7%, which is a near 14-month high. In fact, in terms of the US indices, the Dow Jones has retreated from the record as rising bond yields have kept investors on the edge, and the threat of inflationary expectations hinging in terms of the overall economic recovery. In fact, the investors sold tech-related growth stocks as Treasury yields touched a near 14-month high to nearly around 1.7%. In fact, we did see the Treasury yields also hitting 1.72%. Dow fell 0.3% to close at 33,067, while the S&P and Nasdaq were also down by nearly around 0.3% and 0.1% respectively. In fact, in terms of Europe, the European stocks, however, have reached record highs on Tuesday on hopes of vaccination-driven economic recovery, while investors looked past the fallout of the US hedge fund default that hit the banking stocks just yesterday. In fact, the pan-European stock 600 index has gained 0.5%, trading less than 1% below its pre-pandemic peak. In fact, the banking stocks jumped 2%, rebounding after a 1% drop on Monday, as US and European government bond yields rose on hopes of stronger economic growth and inflation. DAX and CAC were up 1.3% and 1.2% respectively, while FTSE was up close to around 0.5% in trade. In terms of the Asian indices, well, the Asian indices were steady at the start of the last trading day of the quarter, as investors awaited more details on the next leg of US stimulus spending and as investors are monitoring the upward pressure on the bond yields. In fact, the banks dragged Japanese equity gauge lower after Mitsubishi's UFJ Financial Group joined the list of firms globally to take a hit from the meltdown at Bill Hwang's Archegos Capital Management. In fact, just yesterday or a day before itself, we did see margin calls being there in terms of the Bill Hwang's Archegos Capital, and that has led to Nomura as well as Credit Suisse stating that they would be probably staring at significant losses. South Korean shares rose. US equity futures climbed after the S&P closed modestly lower. In fact, Nikkei was down by nearly around 0.4%, while shares in Australia were up close to around 1.4%. Kospi was up by nearly around 0.4% in trade. In fact, oil, if you look at the oil has been slightly steady before the first April meeting of OPEC and its allies, and this is one meeting that of course we should be watching out for. WTI crude declined by nearly around 1.9% to $60.4 a barrel. Gold traded around multi-month lows under the $1,700 an ounce, down by nearly around 1.7% to $1,682 an ounce, the weakest in the last 11 months on the back of rising Treasury yields.